The San Francisco 49ers are entering one of the most pivotal off-seasons in recent franchise history, and as the NFL Combine takes center stage, the organization finds itself staring at difficult decisions that could define the remainder of this championship window under head coach Kyle Shanahan. After years of sustained contention but heartbreaking near misses, the margin for error is gone. This is no longer about tweaking a contender. This is about preventing a slow slide backward while the rest of the NFC reloads. The Combine isn't just a scouting event for San Francisco this year. It's a pressure cooker where rumors, negotiations, and strategic pivots will reveal how aggressive this front office is willing to be. One of the biggest looming questions surrounds the future of wide receiver Jauan Jennings. His projected market value sits at a staggering level that would place him among the league's higher-paid receivers, and that number forces the 49ers into a philosophical crossroads. Do they reward a homegrown player who embodies their physical identity, or do they allocate those resources elsewhere to patch multiple roster holes? Paying Jennings top-tier money would signal continuity and belief in the current offensive structure. Letting him walk would signal a transition toward reshaping the receiving core around new skill sets and possibly a new hierarchy of targets. This uncertainty becomes even more significant when you consider the potential departure of Brandon Ayuk and the lingering absence of Deebo Samuel from the roster. Suddenly, an offense that once overwhelmed defenses with versatility risks becoming dangerously thin at the perimeter. That reality is why the possibility of pursuing a veteran like Mike Evans is gaining traction. Evans represents something the 49ers have quietly lacked: a true isolation receiver who can win one-on-one outside the numbers without scheme assistance. His presence would fundamentally change how defenses align against San Francisco, forcing safeties to respect the boundary and opening the middle of the field for the tight ends and backs. But signing Evans would not be a simple plug-and-play move. Shanahan's offense traditionally attacks between the hashes, relying on yards after catch rather than contested boundary throws. Integrating a receiver whose production historically comes outside the numbers would require subtle but meaningful schematic adjustments. There is also the matter of durability. At this stage of his career, Evans brings both Hall of Fame credentials and mounting injury concerns. Committing significant cap space to a veteran receiver on the wrong side of 30 could either unlock the offense or accelerate its decline if injuries strike again. While the wide receiver situation dominates headlines, the heartbeat of the 49ers offense still revolves around Christian McCaffrey. His production remains elite, but the warning signs are impossible to ignore. Approaching his 30th birthday with an astronomical workload behind him, McCaffrey represents both the team's greatest weapon and its most fragile pillar. The organization understands that relying on him as a one-man engine is no longer sustainable. The search for a complementary back who can share the burden and add receiving explosiveness has become urgent rather than optional. Potential free agent options like Kenneth Gainwell or Breece Hall would provide precisely the kind of dynamic support this offense needs. A secondary playmaker in the backfield would allow Shanahan to maintain unpredictability even when McCaffrey rests, something the team struggled with when injuries forced backups into larger roles. The internal options have shown flashes, but not enough consistency to inspire confidence heading into a season that could determine the trajectory of the franchise. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the 49ers off-season strategy and want more analysis that goes beyond the headlines, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because this team is about to make moves that will reshape the NFC landscape, and you won't want to miss a single breakdown. On the defensive side of the ball, the situation at edge rusher may be even more volatile. Everything begins and ends with Nick Bosa, whose early season dominance reminded everyone why he is one of the league's premier defensive players. But the collapse of the pass rush after injuries exposed a dangerous lack of depth. The plan to surround Bosa with reinforcements unraveled quickly, forcing role players into responsibilities they were never meant to handle. Championship defenses cannot depend on a single superstar to generate pressure. The arrival of defensive coordinator Raheem Morris introduces a new layer of intrigue. Morris may reimagine how this defensive front is constructed, potentially shifting young talents into roles that better suit their strengths. However, even the most creative scheme cannot compensate for insufficient personnel. The possibility of pursuing high-profile pass rushers in free agency or via trade reflects an understanding that the defensive line must regain its intimidation factor if the 49ers hope to return to the Super Bowl. Names like Trey Hendrickson, Khalil Mack, and even blockbuster trade candidates have surfaced in speculation, illustrating how aggressively the team may need to act. Pairing another elite rusher with Bosa would transform the defense overnight, creating matchup nightmares for opposing offensive lines. It would also alleviate pressure on the secondary, which suffered when quarterbacks had too much time in the pocket. Beyond individual roster moves, the 49ers must avoid several strategic pitfalls that could derail their offseason. One of the most dangerous would be drafting for speed at wide receiver without considering physicality and fit. The temptation to chase eye-popping combine times has burned many teams before. Shanahan's offense demands receivers who can block, withstand contact, and operate in tight spaces. Pure speed without toughness could create more problems than it solves. Another risky path would be complacency at running back and tight end. George Kittle remains an elite weapon, but injuries have taken a toll. Assuming he will return to peak form without reinforcement would be a gamble. Smart contenders plan for decline before it becomes obvious, not after. Adding depth at these positions would protect the offense from the kind of mid-season stagnation that plagued them when injuries struck. Perhaps the most subtle but dangerous mistake would be overestimating internal development. Young players can improve, but counting on multiple breakout seasons simultaneously is rarely a winning strategy. Championship teams supplement youth with proven veterans, creating a balance between upside and reliability. The 49ers must decide whether they are building for sustained competitiveness or making one final push with this core. What makes this offseason so compelling is the sense that time is no longer on San Francisco's side. The NFC is evolving, rivals are getting stronger, and the 49ers stars are inching closer to the back half of their careers. Every contract, every draft pick, every free agent signing carries amplified consequences. This is the kind of crossroads that separates franchises that remain contenders from those that fade into mediocrity. As the combine unfolds and negotiations intensify, the decisions made in the coming weeks will echo for years. Will the 49ers double down on offense to maximize their remaining window, or will they rebuild key defensive components to restore balance? Can they manage the salary cap while retaining enough star power to compete with the league's elite? These questions hover over the franchise like storm clouds, and the answers will define the next chapter of 49ers football. If you believe the 49ers still have another Super Bowl run in them, drop a comment right now with the move you think would put them over the top, and make sure you're subscribed because we're going to track every rumor, signing, and draft decision as this dramatic offseason unfolds.